Right now at 6, remembering Oregon's longest-serving state lawmaker.
He loved this state to his core, and people are going to miss him.
Plus, a chaotic scene on a Portland street when an arcade owner confronts would-be burglars.
Saw a round cylinder and some knuckles, and I was like, that's probably a gun.
Then, an update on the loss of a renowned Portland chef who drowned in the Willamette, the piece of sports equipment authorities say that prevented her from resurfacing.
When you've been on the river so many times, it doesn't feel like something that could happen.
And the wait is almost over when the new main terminal at PDX will finally open.
Everyone, we begin at 6 with breaking news and the death of former Oregon Senate President Peter Courtney at the age of 81, a year after he retired as the longest-serving lawmaker in state history. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Christine Pitawanich. We have team coverage this evening. Joe Ranieri is live in Salem at the Oregon State Hospital, where the campus was named in his honor today. But first, let's get to our Kyle Aboshi with a look at Courtney's life and legacy. Kyle?
According to the governor's office, Peter Courtney died from complications related to cancer at his Salem home. He was surrounded by family. Courtney is remembered as one of the state's most influential leaders who spent 38 years as an Oregon lawmaker.
Peter Courtney was the longest-serving state lawmaker in Oregon history, a tireless public servant known for his skills as a deal maker.
There is still more work we can do to benefit not just Portland, not just the Valley, but all of Oregon.
Courtney was first elected to the Salem City Council in 1974, then to the Oregon House in 1981. Known for his colorful personality, never afraid to speak from the heart.
What is so horrendously bad about this? It is not going to keep people from having a home. It is not going to starve people. It is not going to make them go naked.
The Democrat moved to the state Senate in 1999 and became Senate President 4 years later. He kept that job for a record 20 years. Courtney championed many causes as a lawmaker, including mental health, animal rights, and child welfare.
Because I really do believe in this institution, in this great place, and I want it to be the greatest.
Courtney left politics in 2022, retiring from the state legislature.
Good luck in all ways. God be with you. Thank you.
Peter Courtney was a fixture in Salem politics for nearly a half-century. He was 81 years old.
Courtney is survived by his wife Margie, 3 sons, and 7 grandchildren.
Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate that look back. Well, let's bring in Joe Ranieri live in Salem now. Joe, you spoke with several people who worked closely with Courtney over the years. What'd you learn?
Well, a lot of stories were shared about Peter Courtney earlier today at this celebration that was planned months ago. People shared stories about what this hospital behind me meant to him. Now, earlier today at that ceremony, the Oregon State Hospital was named in his honor. Again, this was something that was planned 6 months back. Many stories that were shared were about how important the Oregon State Hospital was to him. He wanted to make sure the patients and staff who were inside were taken care of, and that meant better working conditions and living conditions. Now, as you drive into the hospital, his name is on the sign. Governor Kotek talked about how hard he worked to make sure there was a funding for the Oregon State Hospital.
I'm so sad about his passing today, but we're here celebrating something that mattered a lot to him, and it couldn't be a more perfect, I think, tribute to him.
I didn't see him on that day, but as someone who has known him for the better part of 30 years, I can't imagine a greater honor.
Courtney's former chief of staff, who you just heard there from, Connie Seeley, said Courtney's legacy rivals that of Tom McCall, another longtime political legend in the Oregon landscape. Now, she also said Peter Courtney was like family to her. She got very emotional talking to him about this because it was 8 years ago today that Peter Courtney walked her down the aisle as he gave her away on her wedding day. Back to you guys.
Yeah, some touching stories and decades of public service. Thank you, Joe. Stay with KGW and KGW.com for continuing coverage of Peter Courtney's life and legacy. Pat and team will have much more coming up at 6:30 on the story, including highlights from his past interviews with Courtney and reaction to his death from both sides of the aisle.
In your headlines this evening, a Ridgefield family is without a home after a devastating early morning fire. It was reported around 3 a.m. on South 29th Court off Hillhurst Road. The homeowner said the sound of glass breaking woke them up, and they found flames in the office area. 2 adults and 3 kids escaped with minor injuries. 3 cats were reported missing too. Fire investigators at this point are still looking into the cause.
Portland police say a 3rd teenager has now died after a crash last month in southeast Portland. On June 25th, Gresham police say they tried to stop a stolen car on Southeast Division. That is when officers say the driver took off, hit another car, and eventually slammed into a power pole. 2 16-year-old boys, one of which police say was driving, were killed. And now we've learned 18-year-old Cole C.J. Johnson died from his injuries just last week. All 3 had attended Ida B. Wells High School. Johnson had just graduated.
In Multnomah County, health officials are reporting the first confirmed cases of measles this year in the county. It involves an unvaccinated child who recently traveled to another country where measles is more common. Officials don't think the measles will spread beyond that child's family. This is the 6th confirmed measles case in Oregon so far this year. The others were in Marion and Clackamas counties last month, all involving unvaccinated people. There was also an outbreak in Southwest Washington back in January.
Well, let's talk about wildfires. We have a lot to get to. More than 2,500 personnel are now fighting 4 major wildfires burning in central and eastern Oregon. In Wasco County, mandatory evacuation orders have actually been lifted for the Pine Hollow and Wama communities as firefighters have slowed the progress of the Larch Creek fire. It's burned more than 18,000 acres. It's now 14% contained. Crews are also making headway here against the massive Cow Valley fire in Malheur County. It's burned 133,000 acres northwest of Vail. Nearly all evacuation notices have been lifted there. That's good news, and the state fire marshal has turned command back over to local agencies.
But 2 other fires have seen explosive growth. The Lone Rock fire in north central Oregon's Gilliam County grew by 13,000 acres since yesterday and has spread into Morrow County. Crews were able to save the community of Lone Rock as the fire burned around it. It has burned 64,000 acres and is 1% contained. To south central Oregon now, where the Falls fire north of Burns in Harney County grew by more than 20,000 acres since yesterday. Wind from a thunderstorm in the area is to blame. It's burned more than 85,000 acres in the Malheur National Forest and is still 0% contained. Matt, in the Weather Center, what are you seeing out there right now?
I'm going to talk about the thunderstorms again in just a second, but in Portland, it was all about the heat today. We made it up to 97 this afternoon, 97 in Hillsborough. Salem 99 tied the record for the most consecutive 90-degree days ever at 13 there, and we had triple digits in Medford and out in the Columbia Basin. So yeah, it's a hot one for sure. But look, you can see clouds down to the south. That's left over from thunderstorms that are developing down that way, and that's going to help to keep, well, help. It's going to be part of the equation that makes it a very warm night here in the Portland area. So the weather impact alert will continue until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. A little bit humid as well, not East Coast humid, but Oregon humid. So try to stay cool overnight tonight. So those storms, some of these were severe earlier. They're beginning to wind down a little bit, but a lot of lightning in southern Oregon and in south central Oregon too. We'll see if any of those can make it farther north into northwest Oregon. More on that in a bit, guys.
Yeah, and here's to hoping for no new fire starts. Thank you, Matt. Now at 6, new video shows the moment the owner of a Portland arcade confronted 2 people accused of stealing from his business who got away after one of them appeared to pull out a gun.
So this played out yesterday in southeast Portland after Quarter World Arcade was burglarized. Blair Best spoke with the owner today.
Cell phone video shows the moment a burglary suspect threatened Logan Bowden with a gun Monday morning.
I don't think these were amateur thieves. I believe these guys knew what they were doing.
Logan runs Quarter World Arcade in southeast Portland, where this all started around 10:30 a.m. when they were closed.
There's like an entry alert on in the lounge. We have cameras, so I checked the cameras, and that's when I noticed like 2 guys running through with flashlights.
Police were on scene before he got there.
And the response time of the police officers was amazing. By the time I got there, it was like 9 cop cars and everything. I was like, whoa!
At this point, the suspects, pictured here, got away with some cash. Logan wouldn't tell us how much, but says they didn't go far.
And I exit the building, and I look to my left, and they're standing over there.
Their getaway car was parked on this residential stretch of Southeast Madison Street, right by Logan's truck. Police had already left the scene.
So I just throw in reverse and start ramming the crap out of them.
Look closely, because after Logan backed into their vehicle several times, one of the suspects pulled out a gun before driving off.
Oh, I saw a round cylinder and some knuckles, and I was like, that's probably a gun.
Neighbor said he has a gun. I ducked back in the house.
This woman, who didn't want to be identified, watched it happen.
Guns are scary, as we all know. My neighbors here are very observant. Many people came out.
The next morning,
This is also them too.
Logan showed us how his truck made out.
It still works though.
The least of his worries, because the real damage was not seen, but felt.
Hopefully these guys get caught, and hopefully what went down yesterday makes them think twice about going to other small businesses, and it's sad.
Now, those at the arcade have dealt with thefts before, but never a break-in like this. Portland police are still searching for the suspects, and they ask anyone with information to give them a call. David, Christine.
Okay, thank you for that report, Blair. It has been 5 years in the making, and finally, the new main terminal at PDX has an official opening date.
This is so exciting. We got a sneak peek in February where the Transportation Secretary was in town. It's less than a month out now, with the grand opening set for August 14th. Almost here for travelers. Check out this new video from the Port of Portland, giving us a new look inside. Nearly finished. The area is the main feature, of course, of that broader airport redesign. It'll feature new shops and restaurants, that new mass timber roof, dozens of live trees, all inside, and yes, the return of the iconic PDX carpet, the 1990s version, in some spots at least, right? The theme here is a walk in the forest. It comes after nearly a 4-month delay, rather, due in part to some safety lapses during construction.